back. They've been back for 10 days, 14 days, and United need to win a trophy. And, we're having this discussion a while ago about Southgate and how he's not strong enough. Erik Ten Hag is strong enough, and he wants to win. He's a guy that will upset people to win. So if some of the players that have played the World Cup don't want to play out against Burnley next week, Ten Hag will be saying, well, this is your bread and butter. We pay your wages. We need to win a trophy, so you're playing. So there'll be no prospect of this being a second string. It's a massive game for Man United because they haven't won a trophy since 2017, and every opportunity they get, they have to take it.
It's interesting as well when we take a look at Jadon Sancho, and we're just splitting the season up here before October and after October, and there's been a marked drop-off after October for the player. Erik Ten Hag was actually asked about his availability now that Manchester United will be back in action, and he said, we want to bring Sancho back as quickly as possible, but I can't give a prognosis on when that will be. I have had several talks with Jadon. It's a combination of physical but also mentally. When you don't show it week by week, you can fall out of the squad, which is what happened. Mark, do you know anything more about this situation and what's going on here?
Well, I think Ten Hag's been fairly clear there that Sancho is struggling. It's physical and it's mental as well. And it's not just a case of looking for form on the pitch. I think he's finding it difficult in all aspects of his life. And he has spent the last few weeks in Holland training with coaches that Ten Hag's familiar with. So he's not been with the United squad. They're trying everything they can to almost press the reset button with Jayden Sanchez. He's a guy that cost over £70 million, a guy that was in the England squad at the Euros, and he's a really big prospect. But he's struggling, and I think he needs to, like I said, press the reset button on and off the pitch, Jadon Sancho. And I don't expect we'll see him this side of Christmas, because I think he needs to, really get himself back together, physically and mentally. And that's not an easy task. And we've seen with a lot of players in recent years, when it gets too much, they have to be given the right treatment and the right space. And I think United have done that with Sancho, but obviously he's still an asset to the club, and I think they're desperate to get him back on the pitch. But I don't think there's a timescale on this one.
One thing we have seen in this World Cup is some brilliant performances from Cody Gakpo. Well, the PSV manager, Ruud van Nistelrooy, who knows Manchester United very well, has said, if I have the choice, I prefer the summer. This is with regards to his departure and possibly being in January. He said, but it also could be now. You just know there comes a time when you can't say no. Is that time January, Mark?
It could be, but what I'm led to believe is that Man United aren't going to spend any big money in January, and there's a few reasons for that. The prime reason is that the Glazers want to sell the club, so they're not going to be putting their hands in the pocket to spend any more money. So that it'll be a case of looking for loan moves. We've spoken about, Christian Pulisic is a player that they might take on loan if they can do a deal. Gakpo will probably cost in excess of 50 to 60 million pounds now after his World Cup performances, and that is a big leap for Man United in a window where they're not planning to spend. They spent a lot of money in the summer window, more than they expected to spend then. So I think United are going to have to be strategic, but they do have to replace Ronaldo, who went for nothing. He's freed up a lot of money in the wage bill, but I still think that a big fee for Gakpo, I just think January is not the time for United to do it. I think they're going to wait till the summer.
There's obviously a lot going on behind the scenes at Manchester United. Avram Glazer was stopped by The Athletic after the France-Morocco game and asked about his selling the club. He said it's not necessarily a sale, it's a process, and we're going forward with the process. So we'll see what happens. What does this mean, Mark?
I think he was just caught on the back foot there. It's definitely a sale. And I think in an ideal world, they'd look to sell a little bit off. They'd look to sell a percentage off. But the stakes are so high now at Man United. They've got to raise over maybe £250 million to update Old Trafford, if not rebuild it. They've got to pay off the debt on the players. They owe about £300 million in unpaid transfer fees, which is an accumulation of fees that it's not have to pay it all at once, but they're still going to pay it back. The debt is now over £500 million. So all of a sudden they've got £1 billion of debt or outgoings that they need to cover, and they can't do it. So the only way that they can do it is to get out, and they're going to have to get out by selling the club and let somebody come in who's got the money to do it. But Man United have got a lot of problems off the pitch financially with the ground. The ground is now a mess. Steve Nicol left the UK 20 odd years ago, and it's not been touched in that time. So Steve will go to Old Trafford now, and he won't notice any difference. They need to spend some money on it to upgrade it, to make it like the stadiums in the rest of the country. So the Glazers just run out of road. They've run out of money. It's a sale, and the sooner they get it sold, the better for everybody.
Now, before we do let you go, Mark, you wanted to talk about Marcus Rashford and his contract status. What have you got to tell us?
Yeah, well, the situation with Rashford, all of a sudden, he's had a good World Cup, Rashford. He could come back as United's star player with Ronaldo going, but I think people have forgotten that his contract expires this summer. And United will trigger the option of an extra 12 months, but that means you get 18 months in his contract, and there's no contract agreed yet. Now, Marcus Rashford is arguably one of his biggest assets now, and we're still waiting to see what happens. Now, for me, I get to the summer, and if he won't sign a contract, I'd sell Marcus Rashford. I don't think he's done enough at United to prove he is somebody that can rely upon to score 20 goals a season. He's had good moments, he's had bad moments, but if Man United are rebuilding, if Marcus Rashford wants to be a part of it, he's going to have to commit to it fairly soon, because I think he's a player they could sell next summer for money. And I think the fan base will be quite split, actually. I think some would be happy to let him go, some would want him to stay. But I don't think Rashford is consistent enough for United to say, we'll pay you what you want, come and sign this contract, Marcus. So there's a big issue to be addressed over Marcus Rashford for the next 6 months, whether he wants to stay, whether United is prepared to pay him what he wants, or whether Ten Hag is prepared to say, look, you're not for me, I'll let you move on.
Has he done enough, Stevie, to stay on and to convince them to...
I got to agree with Oggy, because you'll still get good money for him. I mean, 7 years, maybe 8, but yet, is he really a starter? I mean, you couldn't turn around now and say, Marcus Rashford has to start for Man United. You couldn't do that. So if you can get a good amount of money for him, then you do it and you move on.
But he has been better this season, Alec, and he's even addressed some of the situation himself. He said that maybe he was concentrating on some of the things off the pitch. Now he's focused fully on his football.
Listen to what you just said.
Right.
Well, he has been better. Do you know what I mean? Does that mean does he have a new contract, Ali?
And here's the thing. I don't want to be a cynic, because why? We have enough people in the world who are cynics. But I will ask the question. Players that are coming towards the end of a contract, and this is not just a reality in professional football. It's a reality in professional sports. Players who are coming to the end of the contract have a way of improving their performance as that contract is running out, knowing full well that there is a payday at the end of it. And I don't think that this is the motivation for Marcus Rashford. I don't think this is why he has been better. But you can't just rely upon what you have seen over the last couple of months and make a decisions in the long term and ignore what has happened over the last few years. So you focus on the last couple of months, you say, you know what, this guy could be the guy for us. But if you see before then and what has been his history with Manchester United, you kind of go, no, I don't think he's the guy for us in the future. I think if Manchester United is thinking about what would be a change, a radical change, and it has begun with, obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo walking out the door, Marcus Rashford would probably be the next one to go. Not because he's a cloud like Cristiano Ronaldo and hovers over the club, but just because I think it's time to look for somebody else to try to be the answer that he hasn't been.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.